I'll let you introduce yourselves, and then I'll introduce our speakers.
My name is John Fody. I am on the autism spectrum, and I have attended these for several months and have helped out as much as I can.
Thank you, John.
My name is Margie Gray, and I have a 13-year-old son on the spectrum, and I also am the Employment Services Director for MindShift. We work with adults on the autism spectrum to employ them in meaningful work.
Hi, I'm Blake Blankers. I work for the Morin Public School District as the autism consultant. I'm also just recently joined the board of directors here at RRVAN.
Our speakers today are two. Emily Coler-Hanson works at Prairie St. John's, and she'll tell you more about herself, but she will be talking about getting ready for the summer months. There's a lot of changes at the end of the school year, and what can we do to keep happy and involved during the summer. And then Dal Reeder is going to speak a little bit about helping us view the world through a different set of eyes. He has a metaphor that he'd like to share with us that will help us understand a little bit better, I think. So, thank you, everybody, and please start.
Hi, I'm on the autism spectrum. I have Asperger's, and I grew up not knowing it, and I was in my early 40s when I was diagnosed. So what I thought I had was just depression and anxiety and various other problems, and it was not really what I had wasn't really known at the time. I used to be, I've been active with Red River Valley Asperger for quite a while. I haven't been so much in the last few years because I've been doing something else. I've been writing, specifically science fiction, superhero science fiction. I'm not published yet because, well, the main reason is that writing is a skill I'm good at. Becoming a published author, that's running a small business, and that's a different set of skills. So, hopefully someday. But one of the things I do when writing science fiction is, you look at strange things, strange worlds, strange creatures, whatever. And then you think about, okay, well, what are the consequences of this? How does this work? What are the things that people would find interesting about this different thing? And in my latest book, I have these aliens, and they look kind of like, miniature Godzilla. They're lizard aliens. They're interacting with the humans that come to Earth. And there was one little detail about them. They're nice people. You can talk to them. They laugh. And they have tails. And, I started thinking about, what happens when you have an intelligent species that has a tail? And, you've seen dogs and cats with their tails. And the tails, they don't have too much of an obvious function other than, cats use them for balance. But one thing they really use their tails for is conveying their emotional state and communication. You can tell a lot about a cat or a dog from, what it's doing with its tail. And I thought about what would happen with an intelligent species that has tails. They'd use it for social signaling and all kinds of stuff, right? And then I thought of a metaphor for being on the spectrum. And I'd like you to imagine for a minute. Imagine a world. It's a lot like our world. And it's got these aliens on it. And these aliens look just like humans, except they have tails. And, they all have tails. They're used to them. They use tails every day for communication and everything else. Now, imagine you're born on this world, except you're human. You might think, oh, well, you don't have a tail. That's going to be a handicap. But in some ways it's better than that. In some ways it's worse. You do have a tail, but you don't know how to use it. The part of your brain that the aliens have that does all the connections to the tail tells you how to move it, how to integrate it with the rest of your body language, with how to communicate. That part's missing because you're human. You're not an alien. Humans don't come with the software for a tail operation. Now, when you're little, this isn't a big deal because nobody expects a baby to know how to use a tail, to hold their tail right. But then people start noticing he's holding his tail funny and he doesn't seem to be able to pick up on tail signals like everybody else does. Couldn't he tell I was angry? I was holding my tail in the angry posture, well, what's wrong? And then you're going, well, what? You're doing something with your tail. Okay, I guess it's important. Don't you hold your tail at me like that, young man. What was I doing? What? I wasn't holding it any particular way. So, but you quickly learn that, okay, this is important. How you hold your tail is important, but it's not automatic. You don't get the automatic feedback and learning that all the aliens with tails do, because that part of your brain is not connected to, that it was missing or not connected to the tail. So you're trying to communicate in a mode that's not natural to you, because you don't have a tail. Or you don't have the tail software in your mind. So you have to learn to fake it. And some parts sort of work. You get some parts sort of make sense. Okay, well, so holding the tail up most of the time means you're happy. Okay, I figured that out. So you're gonna go, okay, in a good situation, you hold the tail up. Except sometimes it means you're angry, and sometimes it means you're being disrespectful. And then one day things are going well at school, and you get chastised and you're in the principal's office, and a note gets sent to your parents for being holding your tail disrespectfully to a teacher. Yeah, okay, well, that doesn't work, okay? So you learn that, okay, this tail thing is really important. So you have to spend a lot of time and energy figuring out, okay, how do I hold my tail? How do other people do it? And you study how everyone else holds their tail. And it's not consistent. It's not consistent at all. I mean, some of them use it for this thing, and some of them use it for another thing, and there's a lot of people who say, oh, you just do it, you pick it up after a while, you just, tail stuff's natural, right? You'll learn, and it's hard. It takes time, it takes energy. And you start going, well, okay, whenever you're out in public, whenever you're interacting with other people, these nice people, they're aliens, but they're a lot like humans, they just have tails, and they all think it's all natural. You do the best you can. And everything's going along, and then you get to your teen years, and you find out tails are used for sexual signaling. And you go, oh, great. Okay, so what does it mean when you do this? And you get contradictory information. And the only thing everybody agrees on is, oh, well, you can't be direct about it. That's crude. You have to be subtle. Yeah, and you have to pick up on these subtle clues on what's interested or not. And then, okay, you start to learn that, and then you find out that it changes based on fashion. What was worked for you? Ask your parents, well, when I was a boy, you held your tail this way and everything like that. And then you try that and you find out and you get laughed at and said, oh, that's it. Yeah, that's dad tail. Yeah, no. Yeah. People don't use that anymore. So you navigate this and you get to adulthood. And maybe there's some things you're good at, maybe not. But you gradually get to the point where, okay, well, I can fake tail most of the time. And then there are aliens, there are people who have lost their tails. I mean, people recognize, okay, they have a handicap. But you look around, it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, you've got your tail, everything's fine. And you might be fine most of the time, and you're going, okay, I know how to hold my tail. I'm watching around, I'm watching how everybody's holding their tail, so now I can figure out what's going on. But it's extra work all the time. It's extra attention, it's extra stress. And sometimes you avoid stuff just because you don't want to have to worry about how you're holding your tail and figuring out what everybody's doing with their tail, because that's too much work. I think you see the metaphor here? That's what it's like being on the spectrum. You're always worried about how you're holding your tail. And one of the funny things about it is, they think these things have names. The only comes up with a name for it. This is tail function disorder, TFD. Yeah, I've got TFD. And they say, well, okay, the TFD, well, obviously this is a handicap. Well, let's just put all people with TFD in one room and they'll get along, right? They're all TFD. Well, they're all humans, yeah, they'll all get along. All humans can get along, right? Well, maybe. The adaptions to the tail not working, I mean, they're all different. People are using whatever strength they have to adapt. So sometimes they get along because they all have TFD, sometimes they don't, you know. Again, it's extra work. But I'd like you to think about that next time you look at a cat or a dog wagging their tail or flipping around. Think about what it would be like to have to function where everyone has a tail. And you do too, but you don't naturally know how they work. And that's the insight I got from the fiction I was writing. Thank you. I was holding my tail up there, right?
Thank you very much, Dow.
Be careful when you sit down.
Yeah.
It was great. My name is Emily Coler-Hanson. I am a child adolescent therapist here in the clinic at Prairie St. John's. I've worked in multiple units, inpatient, and the day treatment program. And in the past, we've been able to offer some really great summer programming, and if you haven't heard of it, we do not get to do that this summer. So that kind of left a couple of us scrambling, and so we wanted to share what was available in the community instead of dwelling on the fact that we don't get to do it. I have a couple of resources that I will pass out. My first few thoughts, because I know I want to leave a lot of time for our panel too and discussion, is that it's fun for kids to have something to look forward to. It is always that kind of dreaded first day of school experience when kids ask, what did you do over the summer? And you're sitting, kind of that outsider who's listening to who went to camp and, who kissed this person and which party was great and who was at which lake place. My hope for all of the kids that we work with on the spectrum is that they have an experience that they get to share as well. I know that a lot of our kids need downtime, and by this time of the year we are crispy and we are done, and school can't end soon enough sometimes. And I've had those beginning conversations with kids where they'll sit and I'll ask, what are you doing this summer? And they'll go, I'm playing video games in my basement and I don't want anyone to talk to me until August. Part of me really respects that. That's great. I think we do really need to be mindful and plan that downtime this summer. But I think we also need to find those bright lights where we can find something fun and enjoyable and make sure that they have those time to be the great kids that they are. And so I have resources, and Barb said she would help me pass out. And I have extra copies too. So if there's ones that you think, this would be great for so-and-so's kid, or, maybe he wants to invite a friend, feel free to take extras. So this first one of resources is all adaptive programming. There's sports, there's swimming, soccer, baseball, all kinds of teams and things.
Thank you, Margie.
Yes, Margie put this one together, which was amazing. Hockey, Hope Inc., our autism support group is on here, Easy Bleach Angels, Gigi's Playhouse, Red River Asperger Network events are on here, TNT Kids Fitness, tons and tons of things. Remember to make sure you guys get copies. This one we put together here is all summer youth activities. Some of these are more neurotypical geared. Some of them are for kids on the spectrum. I put in a big mix because I know our target kids are all different things. I have all of the different library summer reading programs. Barnes & Noble is doing a summer reading program this year. If you read 8 books, you get a free book from Barnes & Noble, which is pretty exciting. And Scholastic is doing an online book fair, or online reading club, where you can collect digital badges and get entered to win prizes. So if you've got someone who doesn't want to go to the library but really enjoys reading, you can participate in an online reading group, which I thought was really neat. They started a couple weeks ago, and for Scholastic, you log minutes, not books, which I thought was another cool way of being able to read and get credit without going, I can't finish the book, or a book takes me so long. That's okay, count your minutes. And they're doing, if you pull up their website, they have this digital counter, and kids have already read over 2 million minutes so far, which I thought was really neat, so by the end of the summer that will be pretty cool to see. All of the park districts, West Fargo, Moorhead, and Fargo all have tons of activities going on. Some of them are free, like Party in the Park, you can go as a family and enjoy. They have all of their pool events. There are a couple of days that Pepsi sponsors where you can go to the pool for free. I will give you a heads up, those tend to be the busiest pool days of the summer, so if a crowded pool is not for you, those are the ones that I put on my calendar and go, nope, we're gonna do something else that day. And that's okay too, so sometimes it's nice just to know what's going on. Yeah, Barb's got that big list. Our Red River Asperger's Network, I've got them listed here. TNT Kids Fitness is doing summer camps, the summer day camps called their No Bummer Summer. They have sensory gym and open gym times, which is really fun. Ann Carlson recently started the Lecotech Lending Library Program. You meet with an OT, and they help pick out toys that are catered towards your kids' needs. And then you get to borrow the toys for up to a month, and you can trade in your toys in and out, which is really great if you've got kids with some specialized interests and you really want to keep an eye on your budget this summer of just being able to borrow and rent some toys before making that big investment of going, you know, do we really need this set? Will this hold his or her interest long enough? And so that's a really neat one. They also have some preschool and elementary social skills camps coming up. YMCA summer camp on Cormorant Lake, they've had special needs kids there before. And who've had good experiences, and you can meet counselors, you can tour ahead of time. They've done a nice job historically in the past, and they do have some scholarships available. Camp Cormorant also has some cleanup days coming up that if you and your child want to go help clean for 2 hours at camp and kind of get it ready for the summer, they will take $25 off your registration fees that can be used in addition to scholarships. I really like the idea of a cleanup day because how great would it be to be able to go and tour the camp when there's not a ton of people there before you decide to go. You can also do mini camp sessions where instead of being gone for a whole week, maybe you just do 2 or 3 nights and then come home. Catherine Kilburn Center for Creativity has lots of art things going on this summer, and there are, you can choose by project. Maybe you're into ceramics but not painting, so you do the afternoon of ceramics. So I like that you can choose what your interest is and you just commit for an afternoon. You're not committing to something that's too big. Red River Zoo has lots of events, and they've got their junior zookeeper program if you've got kids who might want to do some volunteering and have an interest in animals. On the back side, there's 2 different theaters that are doing movies specifically for kids at different times during the day. Fargo Theater is Wednesdays, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., and all seats are $3, and then for another $2 you get a popcorn and a soda. When I looked at this, I said, wow, those are really good prices for being able to go to a movie. The nice part about going during kids' times is if you've got someone who might not sit still or might be moved around or might be noisy, you throw them in a theater with kids and it's not nearly as big of a deal as if you're going, you know, on a Friday or Saturday night where it's a packed theater on an opening night. Marcus Theaters also does this. They're Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday each week. They've got more times, and all of their movies are listed so you can choose in advance which shows you want to see. Both the Bowler and Sunset Lanes, $30. You can bowl for the entire summer as much as you want. So if you've got someone with that interest, it's a great way to be able to get in a lot of that. Let's see, FM Super Adventures is an informal social group for individuals, and I think that's more teens and adults, I believe. So if you've got a little one who goes, might be a little out of place. Buffalo River State Park, this is a great one for our younger kids, ages 2 to 6, they're doing a prairie preschool that you can show up on Thursday mornings, and they do different outside and nature activities. Salvation Army has a youth summer camp, and it is in Minnesota, and I can't remember offhand where, but they have scholarships available, really reduced rates, and their camps are by age and then by theme. They have one that's just a music camp, one that is just a sports camp. They've got elementary, tween, and teenage camp, and they also have one that's a parent-child camp. So if you, as a mom, want to go with your child to camp and give them that experience, you can do that, which I thought was neat because I hadn't seen that other places. Pods Game Design has a ton of classes. They've already started getting registration, so if you've got a gamer in your family who wants to learn how to design their games and do coding this summer, Dave Binkert is the owner and who has worked with Barb and I in the past and helped with some of our previous summer activities, and I'd have no problem referring kids there. NDSU STEM has kids classes and camps. The link that I had, if you go to the bottom of that page, there's a list that says click here for more. Be sure to click that because it pulls up a whole bunch of stuff. The URL for that was ridiculously long and I couldn't fit it on here. And I don't know, because this has all the URLs on it, if this is something we could post on our website that might be easier to click instead of people trying to type, but I'm happy to share it. MSUM has speech and language, and they've got college for kids as well. Their speech and language program is doing summer camps and other activities too. Theater, Trollwood, FMCT, and Gooseberry all have really fun youth programming going on this summer in different capacities. If you're looking for art, Trollwood has the Art Spark program that is a separate art program. And so that can be fun without having to be in the theater or main stage. I know some of these theater programs like Gooseberry have already started casting some roles, but they also do some mini camps and smaller things, or even if you just want to go see a production, it can be a fun way to go and do that. There's a couple other local groups that try and monitor activity calendars, and those are on here too. There's also a Facebook group called FM Busy Babies, but it's really geared towards kids of all ages that will post things going on in the community. So lots to look at, see and do. I have one more from NDSU that is a caregiver group that's meeting this summer of ways to help parents manage the summer with kids with special needs and things going on. So I'm going to pass that one around, and I think that might be a newer group that they're doing because I haven't seen that flyer before. I'm also going to pass out, this is the most requested handout I get from kids in my office, and it is my favorite Play-Doh recipe. And so I'm passing this out as well because I think this is a great rainy day activity. It's all stuff you can make in your kitchen. There's no cooking involved other than heating up water. You can do that in the microwave pretty easily. It can be mixed in a Ziploc bag, so you don't even mess up any dishes if you want. It's all stuff you probably have in your kitchen, food safe. And instead of using food coloring, you use a Kool-Aid packet, so you can choose what you want your Play-Doh to smell like. Because that was the one request that I got from kids that liked to play with Play-Doh but hated the smell. And so if you want berry Play-Doh, if you want apple Play-Doh, whatever it is, you can do that. It does not taste good because there's actually no sugar in it. Don't put sugar in it like the Play-Doh packet says. But if you did eat it, I mean, worst case scenario, you probably just get a little bit of bellyache. But I'll pass those out too. Where should we start them up here? I can see you making a lot of Play-Doh dough. Anyone have questions about any of those?
I just want to say for families in North Dakota who might financially struggle to afford some of these activities, I would encourage you to go to the Department of Human Services website and apply under the autism voucher.
Yes.
They have till June 30th to spend this year's monies. They apparently have a lot of money left. So certainly consider taking a look at that. It's an income-based program, but I would, if you know some families or anyone who would benefit from that, and all you need is a letter from somebody about the how this particular activity or program or whatever would benefit this child in their challenges, and hopefully they will come through. So.
That's a good one. Thank you. Okay, I will turn it over to one of the panel.
One of the things you mentioned, Emily, at the beginning was that it's important to make sure there's a time for downtime. And I know, John, you've talked about that in the past, about how downtime for you might seem different or more than for a typically developing child or a neurotypical child. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that need for that downtime instead of go, go, go all the time.
Sure. Yeah. From my experience, just interacting and doing stuff that people that would not be on the autism spectrum can really be kind of taxing. And like Dow has also explained in his previous speeches, was the video game life bar, where you keep getting hit and that life bar gets smaller and smaller. And when you reach 0 or you're in the red there, you are just worn out and you're exhausted just from social interactions, from various activities, and I just kind of shut down a little bit, and that's the times in which I just need some downtime, and that will just allow me to recharge that life bar back up to green, you know, that self-regenerating life bar if you just stay behind a corner someplace in the video games. And so, playing some video games, watching a movie, doing something that you find enjoyable, that isn't any pressure, that is when that comes in handy. And I also do encourage that you do try interacting and various activities like Emily talked about, but also be mindful that downtime is also important for people on the autism spectrum.
John, do you think that if we would speak to our child in terms of the life bar on the video game, that they would understand that as a way to kind of start self-regulating and saying, oh yeah, my energy's gone down? Or
I think so. I think that's actually a very understandable concept that is very easy to grasp in those terms. And I think that would be a really great way to ask your child where they're at on that life bar and how they're doing. And you know, you can even put up like a chart or a map, and a lot of video games have the life bar turn different colors when it reaches different points: green, yellow, red. So where are you at on that? Green being full meter, yellow being kind of in the middle, and red being close to 0. So you can also do color coding.
that reminds me of some of the things that are used in the schools too, for that self-regulation. This would be kind of a neat one to use at home then.
Yeah.
Different environment.
So something I'd like to add, there's a different kind of exhaustion where you can be worn out for some things but not others. And I think of that, I mean, if you've played massive multiplayer or fantasy games, I think of that as being, okay, your health is still okay, but you're out of mana. No magic spells. You can still run around and talk to people and pick things up, but you're not going to be doing any of this magic social stuff.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting this.
It's a tricky balance though, because, you know, I know my son, two of the things that we've struggled with, and, you know, he's 13 now, and I'm amazed at how much more willing he is to acknowledge where he is in terms of being tired. Like, until about a year ago, if you asked him if he was tired, he was never tired, right? Whether you knew differently or not. But that balance of competing demands, because he was always afraid he was going to be missing the fun stuff.
Yep.
And one of the things that we did one summer, we were at a condo on a lake, and we had some horrific meltdowns. Like the very first night was nightmarish. You know, no air conditioning, so all the windows are open, and you know that everybody all the way around the lake can hear what's going on, and that's stressful for me, you know. So the next day we sat down and we sort of did Ross Green's Plan B, and we talked, and I said, so what is it about going to bed that is, why don't you want to go to bed? And he was like, I mean, you know, I don't know for quite a while, and finally we got to, he was afraid that we were going to be doing fun stuff without him after he went to bed. And I said, well, do you like watching the news? And at that time, he didn't, and he said no, and I said, okay, well, the first thing that we do when you go to bed is we watch the news. And then after that, we're watching programs that are not age appropriate for you, so you wouldn't be able to watch them anyway. And he said, but Dad goes fishing sometimes at night. And I said, if Dad promised not to go fishing without you, would that make it easier for you to go to bed? And he said, yes. And, I mean, it had varying degrees of effectiveness depending on the kind of day we'd had and, what was going on at the time, but it made it much more bearable. It was a much better situation. The other thing that we really struggle with are competing demands, like I want to do this and I want to do this. And as a rational human being, no offense, I mean, he's not rational in that moment that he wants to do both of these things that are mutually exclusive. They can't both be done because they're happening at the same time, right? That's been a really tough one. And finding a way of, compromise of, okay, well, you can't do both of these right now, but you could do this one later, or we could do something like this later. But if it's two things that I have no control over and that's the only time they're gonna happen, he's 13 and that's still a struggle. I mean, he doesn't melt down the way he used to, but man, you can see the turmoil that it causes him.
And I like what you did there, Marjorie, obviously asking him for his input is huge, but also kind of analyzing that situation and just making it more predictable for him. Because there were too many I don't knows going on, and when we're looking at some of these activities, especially if it's a new activity, I think that can be an extra source of stress. And so, you can always pull things up on YouTube, watch videos of a hockey game or something like that, or even just maybe going to the first practices or activities as an observer, and getting a sense of, what goes where and how people are holding their tails, and that was brilliant, by the way, I love that. Just preparing to prepare in those situations, it's great. And of course, as Marjorie brilliantly illustrated, you can't prepare for every eventuality, and so, you have to fall back on those, real objective, non-threatening, methods of getting that information out of your son or daughter, just so that they can participate in that problem-solving process.
One quick comment. I had almost blotted that feeling out from my memory because of how unpleasant it was. But I had that feeling, that desperation of, I'm going to miss the fun stuff. I remember that. And there are different degrees of it. One of those is, I'm ready now. It's like I've drank all the enhancement potions and I can function right now, and I know that this is not permanent. I know I don't have unlimited resources. So I want to do all the things right now while I still can. And then I know I'm gonna crash afterwards. And it's that fear of missing stuff. Because you might not be able, you learn that, okay, I'm ready now, but the fun stuff train left. I missed it. And after a few experiences with that, you get that fear. You're going to miss the fun train. And that's what produces that anxiety, that's wanting to do both things at once.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I remember that, and yes, it caused my parents some troubles.
Could I ask a question about the shift from the schedule and the routine that everybody has right now with school and anticipating how different it's going to be? We're kind of having this with it gets better as they get older, Margie, and I'm glad you pointed that out. It maybe at a different pace than another child might do, but eventually these things kind of become more manageable, I think. But we're facing right now that my grandson is graduating from high school. And I have to tell you, we've had not meltdowns, but shutdowns of schoolwork.
Yeah.
And don't ask me again what I'm going to do after graduation because I don't want to think about it. At least he could say that, But so we've kind of done some tweaking and things around. We let the school set up a job shadow for him, so it wasn't us. Somehow, coming from school was a little bit better than coming from family. But do you have some suggestions or some insights for us about helping to make this huge shift from the routine of school to summer?
I can definitely relate to that. That was terrifying for both graduating from high school and college. Just the thought of what happens next.
Yes.
My entire life, I'm doing this routine of grade to grade with the school work and going to the different classes and the different rooms and the different teachers, and this is what I know. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at an end. It's like a roadblock, and it's like, okay, how do I get past this roadblock? What's next? All the unknowns. So much is going on in your head. You don't know what's going to happen next. At least with high school, you know, you're going into college, which is basically a continuation. But after college, then everything changes. And
I could make a argument that a big motivator for me going to grad school was not knowing what I had to do after college, and grad school was closest.
yeah,
Closest to what you knew.
Yes, closest to what I knew.
yeah.
I think that summers are like the mini version of what you're talking about. You know, it's like on a much smaller scale. What's next? What's going to happen? You know, sitting down with a calendar and knowing, you know, okay, well, we're gonna do these activities and these are the time frames, and you know, it can be really challenging to keep a normal schedule. This will be the first summer that my son hasn't, and he's 13, and you may think he went to childcare for an exceptionally long time, but the woman he went to was a para at the school. She has a son his age, so it was really going to hang out with his buddy all day, which made it more palatable. This is the first summer that he won't have that structure of getting up and going to her house every morning. And there was always a little bit of a schedule there when he was there with her, but my husband and I both work, so how do we keep that schedule? Even to the point of, you know, one of the things that we've struggled with is he had sleep issues, and we went and saw a sleep specialist, and he told us it does year-round, you need to keep the same sleep schedule. Well, try getting a 13-year-old boy to bed. Even, I mean, let's be clear, during the school year, there have been times when he's gone into his room on his own between 8 and 8:30 because he was just so exhausted. Try getting him in his room at 9, even 10 o'clock when it's still freaking daylight outside. I mean, this was new to us when we moved up here. The fact that it stays light all around the clock. So, and all of his friends are out playing and knocking on the door at 9:30 saying, can you come out and play? And I'm like, what are these kids' parents doing, you know? I mean, they're all obviously out socializing because the kids are, you know, out around the clock. But one of the things that I tried at one point was creating a blackout curtain for his room so that when we turned the light out in his room, it was dark. It was night in his room, even if he just walked in from where it was daylight. We got, and this is like not how to get ready for summer, but I highly recommend the wake-up lights. I don't know if you've seen these, but they simulate a sunrise. And during the winter, it helped him to wake up. Someone that I know who's on the spectrum, I saw her talking about it, and it was like, this is brilliant. And she was raving about how it made such a huge difference for her. It made a huge difference for us in terms of getting up for school. So trying to manage the natural environment to a certain degree, you know, I mean, we're getting some tools that we can start to do a little bit more of that, But keeping that consistent sleep schedule has been a real challenge for us.
So I'm pretty sure, Margie, that I have the kid that's on the complete other end of the spectrum. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll get up and say, Jacob, what in the hell are you not in bed? Dad put you to bed 3 hours ago. And he is a night owl. But my other thing is, he's not worried about missing the fun stuff. He is more the shut down, and the social stress of it is huge for him. So, question about, what's your recommendations for, so we've got a thing planned, and quite honestly, that is like pulling teeth, to get him to want to do whatever. Even if it's something that is enjoyable for him when he gets there. Fencing, great, love fencing, did really well at it. The social anxiety of getting ready to go was just awful for him.
Yeah.
We're not gonna make you go to have fun, is kind of the thing. So what do you do in the summer? We've got fabulous resources, lots of things to do. We get to the day and it's like, hell no.
Can I tell you something?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to commit in advance to giving this talk today because I didn't know whether I was going to be up for it, ready for it. And Emily was very kind in giving me the option of being able to come in and do it or not do it, whether I'm ready or not. So that's a lifelong problem, that you don't know
Whether you're gonna have that extra ability or not. And one thing I found that helped is having some known good backups. For me, it's books, or a video game, or something. And then what you can do is that lets you limit the damage. It's like, okay, well, if I can't handle it, I've got something else I can do just in case, And that's gonna be different. I mean, what the specific backup is gonna be different. And then sometimes, you say, well, everything went fine. But everything wasn't necessarily going to go fine, that you couldn't know that in advance. And it only takes one disaster for them to remember. I would remember there was a social activity where somebody told me everything would be fine 2 years ago, and I'm still traumatized by it.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, well, no, and yeah, it was not fine.
Yeah.
And I remember that, and then once you get one of those, they're always gonna be specific, oh, everything will be fine. No, everything will probably be fine. So you've got this thing, you've got this large chance that things will be okay, and this small chance that they will be disastrous, and that's the source of the stress.
I think that's really profound what you said, because I mean, as much as we want to make things predictable, and just the social dynamics of that situation are very unpredictable, because you're not necessarily dealing with adults who might know how to respond. You're dealing with other kids, and so, but I find that for a lot of kids, even just telling them that, like the way that you framed it, saying it'll probably be fine, but this might happen, and here's how you might deal with it, or this might happen, and this is kind of your backup. And I think another thing would be kind of having an option for an out with dignity. Just to know that if they're in this situation, they're not locked into it, and there won't be disastrous consequences if they decide to step out, and just know that that's okay. And I think more than anything that cuts down on the anxiety, because if they're thinking black and white, I'm either going to do this or I'm not, that can be a source of anxiety as well.
The graceful way out is a really important thing. That has worked well in our family.
Don't go into the dungeon of fun without a healer.
Yeah.
When you mentioned memories, Dow, that reminded me of a time when my grandson really did not expect to enjoy this activity, but he took a deep breath and tried it anyway, and he really had a good time. It was not a disaster, and so I said to him, how is this right now? Try to avoid the word feeling, that it kind of comes in there. And what was this like for you now? And he described it, and I said, that sounds like it was really great. He said, yeah, I really liked it. And I said, okay, put this in your memory. Remember that when you did this time, this was what it was like for you. And then we can refer to that back later on, but to not have that ahead of time, you know, it was like what you said, it was harder to remember, oh yeah, it was good, but maybe not. But this way he had a specific thing that he could think about, oh yeah, that was okay. And that kind of helped him with the next time.
Yeah, that strategy, we've worked with a lot. That, and, you know, it's probably rarely possible, but thinking about it in advance, there may be opportunities to have someone, like, whether it's a friend, someone that they know that's gonna be part of the activity. That has been something that we've also done, is to say, well, you know, Nathan's gonna be there. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, I know it's not gonna be all bad if Nathan's gonna be there, right? So that.
Did Nathan have a good time last time?
But I also liked how you said you had options in your mind,
Mhm.
and maybe that's something for the summer too, to say, well, and you have to be.
Plan B.
Yeah, you have to be okay with that as a parent, but to say, you know, there's this as a choice, and there's this. So you're okay with either way, because sometimes you do need that way out gracefully without having a meltdown, and then you feel bad.
He doesn't melt down. He reverts to, nope, I'm done. But the plan B always, unfortunately, always tends to be video games. And he could play video games 24 hours a day. I'm pretty confident. Right, but not sustainably, probably.
Yeah, after about 6 weeks. Lack of exercise starts to get to you.
Yeah, lack of light, you start to grow fungus. But his that's a default for him because it's a very safe thing. And he likes it, and he's good at it.
I'd like to add something into there. When I was younger, when we would take like family road trips, that was always a source of anxiety because, you know, in a tight confined space in a car, going for, you know, 6 hours, that was always a source of stress. So, you know, you bring along a portable game machine and you're able to play that, and that's your plan B. That can occupy time. And at, you know, various activities, if it's appropriate, you know, bring that along as a plan B. So you have the video game safe spot there that you have. But also, you know, encouraging him to take part of the actual activity, but just let him know that there is a way out if you become overstressed. I would recommend thinking about that, you know, just always plan Bs.
We have just a few minutes left. If anyone has one more question that you'd like to be able to ask any of our panelists or our presenters?
Joanne, just to follow up on that last question a little bit. I get asked a lot with parents who, I mean, and this can even apply to weekends in addition to summer. It's like sometimes parents just want to have a day of whatever, you know, and you know, not have it be so structured and things like that. But their kid has a need to kind of know what's happening and have some structure and a schedule. And I think you can have both. As long as you know you're structuring that whatever, if that makes sense, and so that could take the form of you know, just coming up with a really flexible daily schedule that embeds a lot of different choices. And so you might think about, so what would a kid normally do on the weekends or during a summer day when they haven't got a lot going on? Well, they've got all these choices of things to do. But I think if we define that for the kid with their input, of course, you know, it can provide that predictability and structure that they need while allowing for opportunities to just kind of have a whatever day.
Kind of like an activity box, you get to choose
Right.
from what's in here, and they're all known.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's
and
a great idea.
we did this very recently where we were very specific and said, you know what? We're going to downtown Fargo and we're going to have lunch here. And we all had agreement on that. And then it was like, and after that, this block of time, is for us to just wander and explore. So we structured freedom, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
But it's as much setting expectations as anything, of knowing, you know, so before he gets something in his head that we're gonna eat lunch and then we're gonna go right home so that I can go over, you know, so I can play this game or do whatever it is that he's got in his head. We sort of have to be able to get in his head before his head is set.
Well, yeah, having your plans upset, that's one of the ways to reduce stress, is where you go, okay, so there's some stuff that's a little stressful, I'm going to make a plan to reduce the stress.
Mhm.
And then he's gonna be doing that on his own.
Yeah,
And then if you come in with something that contradicts with his plan, all of a sudden, blam, you just blew up his plan, and now the stress is back. That's what's going on there.
mhm,
Mhm.
So that the other thing is that maybe make a distinction between the things that are hard set, that are essential, and the things that are, well, we think this would be nice, but it's not essential. If it doesn't conflict with what you have planned, we'll do that. If it does conflict, then we can do something else. So there's levels of how essential is each thing to the plan for everybody else.
mhm.
And I think making that distinction will help when you're doing planning stage.
And that's a very important point, because with a lot of things, there's anxiety, and a lot of times, like you said, you are thinking of what I can do about this anxiety. You're internally thinking about this, and you're probably not letting other people know, because you're just doing your head. And then if somebody takes that anxiety plan B out, it's like a rug being pulled out from under you.
Yeah, it's not just telling somebody to not do something that they wanted to do. It's interfering with a coping strategy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is a kind of a different plane there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate our panelists for coming today, and Dal for your presentation, and Emily. And thank all of you for coming, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.